All right, good morning, folks. How's it going out there? Welcome back here to a Wednesday morning, October 15th, 2025. 10:24 local time here along the West Coast. Latest activity here on the earthquake 3D globe shows a 1.8 up into Alaska. Also a one-pointer. Looks like a little 1.1 outside of Yellowstone National Park. So let's go ahead and see what's going on up here. There is a couple earthquakes being recorded here in the last 24 hours. It looks like we got a little bit of a swarm going on here across Yellowstone to the south of the current 1.1. Nothing big. In fact, if you look here on the earthquake 3D globe, you really don't see anything showing up because it's set at a very small magnitude. These are all below 2.0, but man, let's go see what's going on here real quick. Run over to the Yellowstone seismograph stations here and see if we do indeed have a swarm going on. There's the activity to the south here. Looks like it's right around Yellowstone Lake Yellowstone. A couple of these seismograph stations, obviously, they've tampered with them to where they don't work, or the amplitudes are squashed. That one's offline. I guess we'll go up here to this one. I know this one works for sure. Although this may not be picking up all the events. You can see a little bit of activity there, but it does look like there's more very light activity. So let's zoom in a little bit closer. Maybe I can get one of these other stations here to key up. I wish they all worked like they used to. You know, there's some of the activity as well. Very small movement. And just showing you guys here the other site that I used to use. It's called Yellowstone Seismograph. Thumbnails. Let's see if this is picking up. Barely picking up any of that activity. The amplitudes are too squashed here. It's not what it used to be in terms of monitoring the activity, but it does look like some of them picked it up, just barely. But it doesn't look like much. I miss the old amplitude readings. Okay, that one's got. Let's click off of there. I just want to find one that's decently amplified to maybe, get a little bit better view here. What about this one? Oh, there we go. There we go. This is what I was looking for when it comes to the proper amplitude and discovery of how much earthquake activity is taking place. Look at that. Holy smokes. That's a pretty good clutter of earthquakes there between about 2:30 and just about 4 o'clock or so. Now these guys, what are they showing? About 22 earthquakes here. Let's see what they're reporting here real quick. Go back up here. 24 earthquakes. About a mile or so. Actually, 2 miles. Mile to 2 miles below the surface there. But 24? There's definitely 24 on here. Maybe a few more. It's kind of hard to count every single one of these, or maybe even some smaller ones in between the ones with darker red lines. Since then, looks like a couple more, but that, it's crazy how Yellowstone just kicks up an intense earthquake swarm all of a sudden, and then it will just completely die away. About an hour or so of clustering in terms of the earthquake activity. Nothing big. But we will definitely watch that. The latest up here to the north, 1.1. But, man, that's a hefty amount of earthquake activity in a short time period, but nothing big. It's not, there's nothing here above even the 2.0 threshold. But interesting nonetheless. And I'm glad they're at least reporting it. That's up there at Yellowstone. We'll continue to watch that. Also some activity here in Northern California. A little clustering going on here around the Battle Creek Fault. The majority of these, let's see here, about 4 o'clock this morning. There's a 2.8, the latest. It does look like things are increasing out here. Now, I've noticed here in the last couple days an increasing amount of earthquake activity, specifically across Northern California here in this section. Now, from a geology perspective here, the Cascadia subduction zone is a massive area, right? It extends Northern California northward to the Queen Charlotte Sound area. When the pressure squeezes out here, when you're getting that amplification of pressure, we see signs inland, well away from the subduction zone itself. The pressure just doesn't stop right here. We continue to see earthquakes and pressurization well inland. And this area at the southern end has definitely been showing some stress signs out here due to the Cascadia subduction zone. A lot of fault systems showing some earthquake activity out here around the Battle Creek Fault as well. Some of these are deep, 16 miles deep underneath this area. The 2.1, 12 miles deep. So we do have a lot of deeper activity over here at the southern end of the Cascadia. A couple earthquakes as well into the locked region. That's 10 miles deep there for that one. The latest one shows a 1.4 at 4 miles deep. That's getting into the locked area of the Cascadia subduction zone, the southern end. There was one from yesterday, but I'm just noticing and trying to point out here that the squeeze is on. And these could very well be foreshocks of something bigger out here. It would make sense, right? When you get to a point of just it can't stress anymore, right? In terms of pressurization, you would see areas of stress away from that main region, that transfer of pressure here. And it's inland off the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. Tremor counts there yesterday. Let's see what we got here for Cascadia tremor. These are slow slip events. Majority of them were up north there in Vancouver Island ranges, but we did have some down here across the southern end of the Cascadia subduction zone. We'll watch this later tonight when it comes out, about 7 o'clock or so. I'll do the update tonight, but we'll cover that once it comes out. I'm betting that maybe this area is going to show some further tremor counts down south here because the strain is showing out here in Northern California. It's been fairly active out here across the northern portion of the state due to the Cascadia interaction here of the North American plate. These are strain quakes off of that area. Up in Washington, a number of earthquakes as well. A couple of those deeper into the Cascadia subduction zone. Nothing big going on. Got a couple earthquakes around the Mount Rainier area. Also one up here in Mount St. Helens. Excuse me. I would hope Mount Shasta didn't go that far north that quick. But let's go ahead and see what we got there from the PNSN network with regards to the volcanoes up there, which have been, interestingly enough, seen a little bit of swarming themselves. Nothing like Mount Rainier has been seen, but Mount St. Helens has had a decent amount of activity as well. Very small quakes. In fact, once this, what was that last night? That was a 2.3, right up there at Mount St. Helens on the northeastern side here, about 6 miles underneath this region. That earthquake has it's messed with the amplitudes out here. If they had kept the amplitudes elevated, then this would be overblown on that scale. So it looks like it's a self-adjusting amplitude graph here. But that's a 2-pointer underneath the area. If this weren't here, we'd see all these other earthquakes here that are just barely visible. These are very small microquakes, but it's a part of a swarm that's still ongoing underneath the Mount St. Helens area. This one was I can't say messed with, but adjusted because of the reading here. I'm trying to find a day when we didn't have something that popped up. See, this is what the seismograph station would normally look like with the amplitude increased. And you can see a lot of the smaller events a little bit better out here on the graph. So I'm betting today this is probably going to be similar. I had the amplitudes, not self-adjusted there. But this is just earthquake activity. This is at Mount St. Helens. Very small microquake swarms going on, but it's definitely out there. Let's check out Mount Rainier real quick, see what we have. Nothing being reported out here, but we know that's not the case because there has been some earthquake activity out there, and it's been ongoing since July or so. There's one, definitely a legit earthquake. A couple other earthquakes there on the map as well. Granted, some of these may be ice quakes or rock falls, but I guarantee you these bigger ones are indeed earthquakes. See these right here? Nothing like what happened in July, right? Just for comparison, if we go back to July when the swarm was really going on, that's what it looked like. It's funny, they didn't call these ice quakes or rock falls. These were legit earthquakes, and it went on for a good period there. They stopped reporting the earthquakes, it seems like, towards the end of July, but they're still continuing, but at a slower rate, much slower than what we've seen back in July. All right, that's Washington area. Let's see here. This activity in Northern California, as I noted, I'm pretty certain it's got to do with the strain out here. Cascadia really pressurizing this region here. Bay Area pretty quiet. Southern California, spotty, very spotty. Actually, it looks like it's probably below average for a daily count. We only got 21 earthquakes out here in the Southern California area. None of those above 2.5. So, no one's going to feel a 1.3. Not out here along the West Coast. But that's a little low. Normally we should see about 30 to 40 small microquake activity events in Southern California on any given day. A little quiet out there for now. Oil fields have been rocking and rolling. Look at this. A pretty dense amount of earthquake activity through the oil fields up to the New Madrid seismic zone. That means that North American plate here is on the squeeze. Maybe that's why we're seeing elevated activity at Yellowstone there. I don't believe that's magma related. We'll check out the GPS station here in a second. The activity around New Madrid seismic zone looks like 1.9 and 2.2. Nothing big over the last 7 days or so. A couple earthquakes out here. Just letting us know this fault system's still very much alive. 28 earthquakes around the New Madrid zone in the last 30 days. A little clustering going on there in Arkansas. Not for sure what's underneath this area. It may have something to do with the seismic zone up there. I don't know. Is there any oil fields out here in Arkansas? A lot of heavily wooded areas. I'm not for sure, but they sit literally just outside the zone there, which is the New Madrid zone. Actually, a little area of interest here to the southwest there in Arkansas. That's capable of some larger events, it looks like. Okay, now I want to go up here real quick to Yellowstone while we're talking about this. This is around the western side here of Yellowstone Lake. I want to pull up a GPS stations there in that area, see what's going on. This is a network, a large network of GPS stations that you can zoom in on and check out. Just for example, in Southern California there. Vertical displacement, northward movement. Obviously, that part that I clicked on is related to the Pacific plate as it's moving off here to the northwest. Eastward movement going down. Obviously, that would make sense because it's not going east. It's going further to the west. But these GPS stations here are pretty neat. I could spend all day looking at them because it gives you a little clue on what's going on there with the land. Now, the earthquake activity, a little swarm that's going on, is right around here. There's 3 within the area. Let's check out this seismograph station here. This is offline since 2022. That doesn't do any good. See this one down here. That one's off. One's offline as well. This one's current. And this kind of shows when that big swarm happened back in 2008, 2009. We were actually going up. It was a little scary if you think about it. Super volcano inflating, but not in a big fashion. But it did stir up some nerves, a lot of earthquake swarms, and then it went down. And then we had another decent earthquake swarm around 2015, 2016. And then since then, we've been going down. Last couple run times here show a little bit of upward displacement there. If you look right here, see those kind of purple pinkish on my end, but nothing big in terms of any inflation going on. Let me back out of there real quick. So yeah, that's going to be, I just wish we had more out there. It'd be right about here. Was there only one station there? Let's see. Yeah, that's that one. Well, this one's online as well. But the gradual trend out there shows deflation going on. 2026, we're not there yet, but pretty close. Really nothing of any interest for now. But earthquake swarms at a super volcano, I do like to look at because that's, it's kind of a serious deal. If it increases, things start to inflate, then, obviously that could be a sign of something brewing. Let's see what else we got here around the world. As far as any larger activity goes, Kermadec Trench down there, pretty active. North Island region, looks like there's a little swarm going on off on the eastern coast there of North Island. Bunch of threes. Some larger movement north along the Kermadec Trench. Pretty active out there. Of course, the Hikurangi subduction zone sits just offshore here of the North Island. Can't really see it with just a line, right? So you have to go to the oceanic crest, and from there you can see that subduction zone with the ridges and whatnot. But this area is capable of some large activity. Looks like maybe those threes are stirring up around that region. Nothing big for now, but do have to watch that. Pretty quiet up here around Vanuatu and the Fiji area for now. Another earthquake out here in this zone. See that? 5.4 out here in that odd region away from the plate boundary. If I recall, we've seen similar activity like that prior to the Philippines earthquake activity. Yeah, there was one out there on... Oh, this shows the 13th. I thought there was another one out there. See, that's a 5.9. The more recent 4.0, or 5.4. It's interesting to see that activity because there's really not a whole lot of historical data out there. There's some, of course, that's going to be closer to the plate boundary, which you can see up here. But a little bit of activity stirring up here where the two earthquakes struck here in the last couple days. Just some interesting movement there. Definitely watch the Philippines. Around the Filipino plate, there's been quite active. Today, 3 earthquakes in the upper 4 range. Well, that's the last 24 hours. Technically, 1 earthquake there after midnight for a 4.9, but I'm sure there's a bunch of smaller quake activity stirring up there as well. Pretty good cluster going on out there in the cluster zone. I call it the cluster zone because it's always having earthquake activity like this, but maybe not necessarily to the extent of the amount and large magnitudes that we've been seeing. That's definitely been elevated, but keep an eye on it. 2 regions here of decent activity that could put I could definitely put this area where it's quiet right now in the line of earthquake potential today. Up along the Kamchatka area, a couple 4s out there, maybe a 5-pointer from yesterday. I don't think there's anything too new today. Let's see. Yeah, that's from last night, a 5.2. So a little bit quieter out there for now. Doesn't mean it's going to stay that way. Some decent activity, uptick going on along the Chile area, following a 5.6. Is that a new 5.6 or is that from yesterday? Oh, that's a new 5.6. North of Santiago, Chile. The latest, though, shows a 4.5 northward here, about 200 miles. So this area of the Peru Chile Trench, produced the biggest earthquake ever recorded back in 1960, if I remember right. The Great Chilean earthquake of a 9.5. Something like that today. Ooh. Well, obviously it was a big event. It created a huge tsunami. It looks like it's pretty active out there with that clustering going on. Doesn't mean we're going to see another 9.5, but that's just for reference there that the Peru Chile Trench is no stranger to megaquakes. Middle America Trench up here, some older activity and a couple smaller, newer 2s. Nothing really big going on there for now. The Atlantic Ocean, quiet. 2.7 out in the, looks like around the Turkey area potentially. Some other 2s and 3s out there. Really nothing big going on for now. That's clustered here because the EMSC data is covering the local activity here. Let's see. Australia, 2.5. That's a fairly new one, showing the pressurization here between these 2 regions. These intraplate boundaries across Alaska or Australia may shows some elevated activity here with these two distinct regions, just like what we're seeing right now, 2.5 in between this area. Got to remember the Pacific Plate down here, putting all that pressure within the Australia region. Let me pull up my GPS graph here. So movement here to the northwest, general plate movement of the Pacific plates to the northwest. So when things are increasing, pressurization's going on here. That puts a strain on this area, but also here within the intraplate boundaries, which Australia has shown a little bit of movement between here and that cluster going on. So maybe some further activity there for Australia today. 1.8 way up north into Alaska. Just kind of a, another moderate day of earthquake activity. Nothing big happening yet. Let's check out space weather, where there's actually a decent amount of flaring going on. Look at this. Look in the last couple hours or so. We're almost sizzling right in the M flare category. This looks like just a long duration M flare from this sunspot. I still think it may produce an X flare before it pops over off the western limb. It'll be out of sight, out of mind here soon. So if it's going to do something, it better do it quickly. Maybe in the process of it right now. That thing's been throwing off C and M flare activity like crazy. This is very unstable activity here. I mean, I don't know how many C flares and M flares we've had, but there's been numerous ones here in the last couple days, and most of those have been off of 4246 right here. Fairly complex looking. This image shows the 15th, but it's behind a little bit on the UTC time by probably about 15 hours or so. But this area also got 4248 growing. Look at that center core. That's getting complex as well. Not flaring as much as this one up here, but you can see a little bit there starting to peak up. Those are pretty much the only active areas here on the sun that I'm watching. Very visible if you have a solar telescope there. Of course, make sure you have the right lens on there. Otherwise, that could be bad. Definitely want to have a solar lens on anything to do with filming the sun. But that is super complex. We'll watch that. Flare threat is elevated while those sunspots are currently facing the Earth. I'm issuing a 20% chance, a little bit above the solar ham site, just because of everything that's been going on there with it. I mean, I haven't seen it look like that in a long time. And normally when it does, we will see at least one good X flare, and then it will die down. But that's pretty crazy looking. 55% chance there for M flare. Aurora activity, yes, we do have some on the horizon here. This is for tomorrow night, G5, or excuse me, KP index of 5. That could be up around a G1 storm, it looks like. But if it looks like they're calling a G2 up here in the mix. This isn't quite showing the G2 level, but that'd be for the 16th of October, UTC time around 2100. So right now we are on the 15th, UTC time of 1745. So tomorrow night should be perfect there for the 21 to 00 Z time. It'd be perfect if you have clear skies, it is. So we'll see how that materializes. Also, it's going to be dependent here on the BT-BZ component. Right now, everything's closed up as tight as it can go. We'll see what happens, though, tomorrow night once the arrival of the couple. We actually have a couple CMEs that are headed to the planet. And we'll see what happens with the auroras tomorrow night. Close approach asteroids out here to the planet. Let's see what's going on here. This one's pretty close, 60,000 miles. That's actually really close in terms of distance-wise from the planet, but still outside, any hazard zone. 54 feet for a house-sized asteroid there. Newly discovered, but that's super close. Everything else there fairly safe and at a distance. Checking out the Storm Prediction Center for severe weather today. There's a marginal risk for some severe weather. This is the low that's been Brought me almost, actually, over an inch and a half of rain here in the last couple days outside of Chico. Good soaking. The ground needed it. That low pressure now moving on over Colorado. It looks like there's a marginal risk there, maybe a 2% chance there for some tornado activity, Colorado and New Mexico. Wind and maybe a little bit of hail threat associated with those thunderstorms today. Take a look here at the map in motion. Let's see. I don't see any hurricane activity. There's one coming down the road, it looks like, around the 26th time period, 27th of October. This, of course, may not happen. This is just what one weather model's starting to pick up, a decent-sized system out there. Now, whether that plays that route or not, we'll just see. But I do like to look at these long-term models here. There's another system there for the West Coast. That's awesome. Anyway, it looks like the fall season's starting to mix up out here, and all the potential scenarios are playing out. A lot of colder weather, a lot of still warmer area in the south. Today it's just cold out here in Northern California. It's supposed to only be 62 degrees or so. I mean, for us, that's like 15 degrees below normal for this time of year. But I will take it. All right, let's see. A couple earthquakes showing up here on the map in Southern California since I started the update here. One up north and then one down here south on the San Jacinto fault zone. When this lights up, when you see earthquake activity across the shear zone and a bunch on the San Andreas or close to the San Andreas fault, you know, you can pretty much assume that the Garlock fault shear zone and the southern branch here of the San Andreas fault is getting that pressure built up on it. Definitely could be soon, just a matter of time, right? It's all about time, geology. And guess what has happened a long time ago? Big earthquakes out here. We've been pretty lucky to not have anything to deal with, but that may change. All right, I'll keep an eye there on Yellowstone. There's the earthquake in Anza, or what is that? That 1.1 near Anza. Super spiky, indicating a small earthquake, but literally probably right on top of that seismograph station there for it to show up like that, 1.1, almost 8 miles deep. All right, I'm out of here, folks. Have yourself a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you guys out here a little bit later on this evening, unless something major happens. 5 days from now, we'll be doing the member drawing, picking out 3 members this time because we're up above 150. We've got 161 members or so. And that's my promise I'd keep, or I said I would do, and I'm going to keep it. We're definitely above that level, so we'll pick out 3 members. That's a pretty good, decent chance there. Definitely a decent chance here to win some prizes. So we'll catch you guys out here later on this evening. Have a good one.